All right, greetings again. Welcome to the Massive Hit Cricket Show. Grenada comes alive tomorrow as the second test match between Australia and the West Indies comes up. The West Indies are down 1-0 in the series after Australia took a 1-0 lead by beating the West Indies, chasing 301 in the first test match. The West Indies, went toe to toe up with Australia for the first 2 days, but ultimately ran out of steam. As a result, Australia are up 1-0. The West Indies will look to basically, hopefully come back in this test match. And today, with me to discuss the second test match and to do, his sort of uh, slight small recap of the first test as he wasn't able to give his thoughts. I have with me, as always, West Indian antagonist Samir Malik. Samir Malik,
Roger,
what's
West
going on,
Indian
buddy?
fans, are you ready for another thrashing? That's what it looks to me. Hey, listen, I agree with you completely. Australia gave you an opportunity. You just didn't want to take it. That's what happened.
Yeah, this test match is going to be a special one for many reasons, Samir. Craig Brathwaite. Let's start with Craig Brathwaite. Craig Brathwaite plays his 100th test match. Brathwaite did an interview yesterday, and he said, um, "You never in his wildest dream did he believe that he would have gotten to 100 test matches." He also said when he made his first 100 for the West Indies, he shocked himself because he never believed he was good enough to make 100 at the test level. I believe Craig Brathwaite has 12 test hundreds. Let me pull this up just to make sure it's 12, but I believe it's 12 test hundreds. How what do you think this test match will mean, Samir? So yes, so Craig Brathwaite, 99 test matches, 5,943 runs, highest score of 212, 32.83 the average, and 12 test hundreds and 31 fifties. So in the context, Samir, of modern West Indian batting, certainly a pretty decent record here for Craig Brathwaite. Certainly, especially as an opener. But how special is this 100th Test match for Craig Brathwaite?
Hey, it's very special for him. It's very special for West Indies, to be honest. Once again, in
Mm,
all seriousness, very special. The reason being is because, West Indies hasn't had many players in the recent past get to this level, right? I think Chanderpaul was the last player to get to 100 tests, right? Am I
Chris
right?
Gayle. Chris
Chris
Gayle.
Gale, yeah. Chris Gale, Chanderpaul, Brian Lara, right? So you haven't had many of those players get up to that 100 tests. So it's obviously a very special day for Craig Brathwaite. But hey, listen, we've spoken about this. He's limping into this 100 tests. And I think, once again, hopefully he has a very good test match for West Indies, for the West Indian fans. I want him to have a good test match, but the chances of him having a good test match are very low. You saw how Mitchell Stark set him up in the second innings um, of that game. I don't think that he has it in him anymore. Remember, he's still relatively young. He's only 32 years old. So can he have another wind in him? Probably. But I think we're getting closer to the end with Craig Brathwaite. That's the honest truth. And listen, now if you go into the stats and you look at the people who get to 100 tests, right?
Mm,
Usually their stats in test cricket are exceptional. Okay. In Craig Brathwaite's case, I think he might be the least special batsman to get to 100 tests in modern day history. I don't think there's anybody else who's played 100 tests and has stats with an average of 32 and only 12 centuries, which is a very, very low number. Usually when you have somebody who's at 100 tests, you're at 20, 25 centuries, to be honest. So once again, hey, listen, a very good day for him. It should be there. I've supported it. Remember, I said, hey, listen, regardless of him being captain or not, he should get to his 100 tests. But I hope that after this test match, West Indies looks to the future.
Yeah, I mean, Samir, I can't disagree with what you just said. I think you were very, very on point and very honest, Samir, in your assessment. So while it doesn't paint such a rosy picture I do believe what you said made a lot of sense. There's something to be said, though, Samir, about someone like a Craig Brathwaite, a player who I believe has eked every ounce of potential out of his ability, right? Perhaps not the most talented player, as he himself would have said. He didn't believe he was necessarily good enough. So I believe in the context of West Indian cricket, I think Craig Brathwaite must be celebrated. Yes, his stats may not be the greatest for someone who's played 100 tests, but at the same time, I think in a West Indian context where most of our players average, generally average lower, our players don't are just not averaging 40 and 50 these days, Samir. And it could be a part of it is our development system, right? Our system is just not producing that caliber of player anymore. Also, West Indian pitches are known to be a little bit more difficult, right? Not the sort of really good tracks that you'll find in some places around the world. So I think we have to give Craig Brathwaite credit. He's played for a long time. He's done good service for the West Indies. He's captained the West Indies. And he's had his moments. He's had good years. He's had years where he's made the world his team. He averaged, I believe, 77 in 2014. He did well in 2022, where basically in those years, he scored 100 in every series he played. 2022, he failed to score 100 in just one series where he made 94 against Bangladesh. So I think all in all, in a West Indian context, Craig has done fairly well, and I believe he deserves the 100 Test matches in this era of West Indies cricket. But another question I'd like to pose to you, Samir. Do you believe it's going to be Craig's last Test match?
Um, it looks like it probably should be. Will it be or not? Is that's up to Sammy, the coach, the selector. This person is doing everything for West Indies at this point, and I
Mm,
think in his mind, he's looking at Craig as a short-term solution to the West Indian opening conundrum, right? Listen, once again, Craig Brathwaite, was weighed down by the captaincy. Remember, he was opening the batting. He was also captaining the team. He's one of the. I think he might be the only player in history, if I'm not, you know, incorrect, who's going to play 100 Test matches and has never played a T20, right? Right or
yeah,
wrong?
I'm not sure, but
I don't think
interesting.
there's any other player in modern day history that you can look at who gets to
Mhm.
100 Tests and has never played a T20 international.
Yeah, that's an interesting start. Something I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to look into. But
yeah.
interesting, he did talk about T20s in this interview, Samir, where he said he played a few one-day matches, didn't feel he had the opportunity to really come back and get a good crack at one-day cricket. And he also said, T20 cricket he feels is pretty difficult, but who knows what will happen in the future? There are a few leagues around. Do you think Craig Brathwaite has a future in T20 cricket?
I doubt it, but at the same time, what I do like, and once again, I've supported this, that I hope that you know Brandon King and Shea Hope are now given an extended run in this Test team, because those are players that are established in the ODI and the T20 squad, and I
Mm,
really want them to play Test cricket too. I want them to play every uh, West Indian international game, may it be whatever format it is, because I
mm,
think that is going to be very important for the build up of the team. Remember, look, Craig Brathwaite, Kemar Roach, they're on their way out, right? You got new guys coming in. Those new guys should be playing every format and given the opportunities for exposure. Because I think one of the reasons why I think Craig Brathwaite averaged 32 and 33 instead of averaging 40 and 43 is because he wasn't playing every game. There were elongated period of time where he's just sitting there, right, not doing anything, not playing any international cricket, while some of his counterparts are playing every format. Like Steve Smith was playing T20s, he was playing ODIs and Tests. Now, obviously, Steve Smith is older, so he's only playing Test cricket, but he's playing other formats too, right? Same thing with Virat Kohli, he was playing every format. You had Kane Williamson playing every format. You have Babar Azam playing every format. So I think that's another reason why his performance was significantly lower
Hmm.
compared to what it could have been, because when you're sitting there and you're not playing all these games, you don't have that momentum, right? So you can go from one format to the other, but you have that momentum that allows you to score runs. And when you're restarting, let's say West Indies doesn't play test cricket sometimes for 6 months in a row. Yes,
Yeah,
he's
yeah.
playing some first class cricket, but it's not the same thing.
And sometimes not even first class cricket career. Sometimes it's
Yeah,
local cricket in Barbados. So that
yeah,
definitely, as you said, would have affected his performances.
absolutely.
For me, Samir, I don't know if it's going to be his last test. I do think if he doesn't do well in this test match, and he might get the entire series, but I do believe if he doesn't do well, he's probably going to be dropped. Right? I don't think he's going to retire. Based on the interview he did, he said he feels he has a lot left in the tank, and he's fairly young. He's a kind of person who maybe he needs a break. Maybe he needs to step away for a little bit. Maybe he needs to regain something. And Craig is the kind of person, Samir, who once he plays domestic cricket, he's just going to make runs, right? He's going to make runs in our first class competition. So even if he's dropped, I wouldn't be shocked to see him making a comeback sometime in the future. As we know, this West Indies team is not the strongest. I just don't see two openers coming in and really cementing their places to a point where they are undroppable. So who knows what's going to happen when it comes to Craig Brathwaite. But having spoken about folks who play all formats of cricket, Samir, Steve Smith is
Yes,
back.
sir. Yes, he is. He still has a splinter on his pinky finger, right? But he's still going to
Hmm.
be there. He's going to be playing. Once
Hmm.
again, one of the greats of the game. Once again, hey, listen, when we compare Craig Brathwaite and his 100 tests, we got to also talk about Steve Smith. And I don't know, if Steve Smith is going to be able to, continue forever. But remember, he has 117 test matches, average of 57. And I
Hmm.
think, if he continues playing, it is just a luxury for Australia. You see how Australia's top order struggled. Now, I don't know, how fit he is, but, I really thought that, Australia made a mistake in the first test, dropping Marnus. They shouldn't have played him as opener, but they should have brought him in the middle order. They are sending Marnus home now. So I think, Marnus is going to be done for the series. But
Hmm.
Steve Smith, coming back is a huge addition. I'm still concerned about the Australian top order, except for Usman Khwaja. I don't feel comfortable with Sam Consis, who's obviously very young, and David and Cameron Green. I absolutely don't feel comfortable with them. So Steve Smith coming back is a huge boost to Australia.
Yeah, no, he certainly
And then
makes it.
and then remember, this is going to be the 99 test for Mitchell Stark. So remember, the third test could be the 100 test for Mitchell Stark too if he plays that game.
Right.
I was thinking, before we were having this show started, that maybe Mitchell Stark doesn't play the third test match and then waits to play his 100 test match at the Ashes.
Yeah, that'd be special,
Yep.
and I think that's what he should do.
That's what for West Indies' sake, right? For West Indies' sake, he should. But maybe Craig Brathwaite would want to play that match if Mitchell Stark isn't playing.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right. Samir, Darren Sammy had a few things to say yesterday in his interview leading up to the next test match. Let's hear what Darren Sammy had to say.
Ourselves in the foot. You cannot drop 7 catches against the world number one team and expect to compete all the time and be victorious. So we have a lot of blame to take for the defeat. But there were also some positives. A new Test championship, new squad, new coach, a new captain, and for the first 2 days we were head and shoulders against the number one team. So some of the guys on the brand we want to say, you look at, Brandon, the way he played, he showed glimpse of when things click and goes well, we could really compete and have an impact on winning.
So, Samir, Darren Sammy there is saying West Indies, had themselves to blame in terms of losing the last test match. we can't just put it down to umpire Holstock, I believe his name is, from South Africa. Um, we can't, expect to drop all these catches and lose in the last test match. You weren't on the recap show, Samir. Do you agree with Darren Samipier?
Yeah, hey, listen, once again, I agree with him completely. He was actually quite generous when he said West Indies dropped 7 catches. I thought they dropped a lot more than 7, but I guess we'll go with 7. And hey, listen, once again, you can't give Australia a chance. As I said, hey, listen, Australia's giving teams a chance. I'm very surprised that, their, opening and top order isn't as settled as it usually is, right? Remember, after David Warner retired, they have still been searching for a new opener. They've gone with Steve Smith, they've gone with Marnus, Sam Constance. There's many options that are out there, and I thought that Sam Constance. Obviously, you got to give him a chance. He's a young player, I do believe. But then you told me that some of the Australian greats were telling him that he needs to exercise patience. I think he
But
needs to do the exact opposite. He just needs to play his natural game. I think he did incredibly well against India. West Indies bowling isn't as threatening as Indian bowling, and I think he should just play his natural game and hopefully get the results that he wants. On the other side of the equation, for West Indies, hey, listen, it's going to be a very tough order. I hope that they learn from the first Test match, the mistakes that they made. Obviously, fielding, they got to improve that, but batting needs to improve significantly, especially the top four, right? Once
mm,
again, I think there needs to be a little bit of a rejuggle in the batting order. Once again, I do believe that there is an opportunity that you have somebody like Brandon King who looked pretty decent in both innings, right?
mm.
I think there's an opportunity to give him a chance on the opening slot. Hopefully, maybe after Craig Brathwaite gets his 100 test, maybe that might be the opportunity in the third test to give him a chance there. So
Yeah.
I think there will be something to be said over there on that side of the equation.
That's probably not going to happen. But let me ask you this,
Yes.
because Brandon King is certainly not an opener in red ball cricket. Let me ask you this: Evan Lewis. Do you believe Evan Lewis has what it takes to be a test opener? And do you believe that potentially he's the one that could replace Craig Brathwaite if he goes out of this team?
So Roger, you know my stance, right? I am a person who supports a player to play all 3 formats if he is selected for his international team.
Mm,
Once again, for me, it doesn't make any sense that you are just selected as a T20 specialist or an ODI specialist or a white ball player or a red ball player. Remember, we were having the red ball versus white ball players comparison. So the
mm,
first question is you select a squad, right? This squad has been selected by Sammy. He's also the selector, right? He's
right.
selected Brandon King. Brandon King opens in 2 formats. He opens in T20s, he opens in ODIs. He
Mm,
plays the other team's best bowlers with a new cherry. In ODIs, you have 2 new cherries, right? You play with both. So why aren't you playing with him as an opener, especially after you saw the results that you in the first Test match? John Campbell didn't look comfortable at all. I don't even think that John Campbell looks like an opener, to be honest. Craig Brathwaite obviously is there, but remember, we know he's at the end, right? So there is the opportunity to try somebody new, right? Once again, everybody keeps saying Brandon King's not an opener. What does he do in the other 2 formats? He opens. So give them a chance. Obviously, if he fails, now you go and look at Evan Lewis. I would absolutely look at Evan Lewis, but he has not been selected. Once he's selected, and then I think there's a fitness issue with Evan Lewis too, right? Remember the
Yeah,
five
yeah.
day format compared to the T20 and the ODIs. He's barely able to keep himself fit in the ODI format.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think if he's able to keep himself fit, I think he has a game.
Yes,
I think he's someone who I feel could play Test cricket. He plays in a more dominant style, and I think he's someone who will, take on the opposition and will look to score and capitalize. And he could be a good Test cricketer, but he obviously would have to be willing, and he obviously has to be willing to work hard to make sure that his fitness is there for the 5 day game. Now,
agreed.
Darren had a little bit more. to say as in terms of strategy, Samir, and what the Western is batting is looking to do?
We probably in the last two Test championship faced the least amount of overs in the first innings and scored the slowest. Probably lost the most wickets as well. So it's an area we identified. And like I said, you cannot be scoring the slowest and facing the least amount of overs. Either you score faster to bring the game closer or you bat more overs. We have selected a squad that allows you to do, well, should allows you, or heading, looking to do both. At the end of the day, I believe you go about 150 overs in the first innings to really put yourself in contention for a result that is not on the losing side.
Samir,
150 overs?
Samir, Samir, listen. Let me address this first. I believe that is muddled thinking from Darren Sammy. Yes, he's right in that either you're going to score faster if you're going to bat less overs, or you have to bat longer. But Darren Sammy, I believe Samir should identify what is the strength of my team, and then send a very very clear message what needs to happen. Okay, you need to bat longer because you have those types of players, or you throw that completely out and you just tell the guys, we got to score a bit faster. We're not the type of team that will bat 100, 120 overs. So let's play more positive. Let's try to get our runs a little bit quicker. That way we can be in the game and you select those types of players. But if you're going to leave it to the players and say, hey, you have two options, and those two options are always there, I don't think that makes any sense. And I don't believe that the team that Darren Sammy has selected is even capable of batting close to 150 overs consistently. That was a load of hogwash.
Hey, listen, remember we had Basball and we criticized Basball, right? And then we said
150
Basball with
overs.
brains is what won England the first Test match, right?
Yeah.
This is dead Basball. There is nothing here. There's nothing here. Listen, Roger, there is nothing here. Listen, you got Brathwaite, you got Campbell, you got Carty, okay, and you got Chase. They haven't scored any runs in Test cricket in the last 1 year. Barely scored any runs. You got King and Shea Hope coming back. They just got back. They haven't scored many runs. You saw Hope score a couple of runs in the first innings. Same thing with Brandon King. Second innings, they couldn't really get going. Greaves, I think he has 1 century, right? 1 century in Test cricket last year.
Against Bangladesh, yeah.
Hasn't scored any
Against
runs.
Bangladesh.
So your batting barely has scored any runs. You understand the point? And I think that's where the issue lies. Once again, I am extremely surprised. Now, of course, Australia is bringing back Steve Smith. That's a huge addition, right? But they're going with the same squad because they won. West Indies lost. What adjustments are they making? Are they playing the same team next game?
All
That
right,
is
so
that is going to be ridiculous.
let's hear from Darren Sammy again, Samir, regarding the team selection for this game.
Any changes likely to the 11?
Most likely not. We're just starting a Test championship. And we believe that 11 we put was probably the most balanced one we could. After one game, there's no need for panic or whatever. It's about, starting the culture, starting a brand, starting a way of play that, guys got to get a fair chance in performing, not an opportunity to perform.
Last question, coach.
Okay, so once again, you select 15, you select 16, right? You don't select 11 when you name the squad before the tour. I think Sammy is wrong here. He saw the problems in the first game, and if he's not going to address them, and he's going to say, I'm going to back the same 11, I think it's going to be ridiculous. Once again, hopefully, I've heard that this pitch at the National Stadium in St. George is going to take some spin, right?
Mm-hmm.
Question is Warwickon going to be playing? Warwickon
Yeah,
wasn't
he's
useful in the first game, but Warwickon might be useful in this game, right?
right. He's the only specialist spinner in the squad.
Yes.
But Samir, what is wrong with backing the selection from the first game? Would you make changes?
Absolutely, I would make changes. You saw that Campbell was out of his scope. You saw that King looked better compared to Campbell. Once again, I would take a chance with him as an opener. I would absolutely do that. Then I think Carty, is Carty a one down? Should Carty be batting two down? Campbell coming in at one down, Carty at two down. Make the adjustments. Shea Hope, once again, is slated at number six. I think Shea Hope is a better batsman than number six. He can bat at number four, number five. I think number six, especially for a West Indian team which has a long tail. After Greaves, you don't have any recognized batsmen, to be honest, right? Alzari can hit a little bit. You saw Shamar Joseph hit a little bit, but that's it, right? So, Shea Hope batting at six, he's batting with the tail all the time. He needs to bat at least a couple of partnerships with recognized batsmen.
Yeah, I mean, I think Samir, I don't agree with you, obviously. I don't think moving your specialist opener, John Campbell, to number three. Listen, John Campbell has played one test match since his comeback. He's played well in domestic cricket. I think John is going to get a good run. I believe he deserves to get a good run, perhaps two or three series, to show what he can do.
Roger, I'm not disagreeing with you.
So,
You can bat him at one down and he still gets a good run, right? What I'm saying is you need to show Australia that you're able to compete. If
yeah,
Hazelwood and Stark are going to run wild all over you in every game, that defeats the purpose.
mhm. But moving up Brandon King, who was not a red ball opener, to open and taking your opener, putting him at free. Hey, listen, that's your opinion, but I don't agree.
And
I would keep.
listen, once again, you're entitled to your opinion. I respect your opinion, but at the same time, what I'm saying is you're not willing to make any changes to the squad. You're not willing to make any changes to the playing 11. What are you willing to do? That's the
Well,
question.
are you making an actual change to the playing 11, or you're just reshuffling the batting lineup? I do
No,
agree with
I'm
you
I'm I'm, I'm
that
saying
Shea
give
Hope.
Campbell a second chance. But did you see how Campbell was batting? Did,
Yes, I
did
saw.
you did you think that he was an opener when he was batting? I don't think so.
Yeah, yeah. It didn't look great, to
He
be
didn't look
honest.
great, right? That's what I'm saying.
But,
Then
but I do agree.
on the other side, I think a player like Carty, might be better off against the older ball, right? Once again, he's coming in
Well,
too early.
that's the problem, Samir. All of these guys want to play the older ball. That's the problem. And someone has to open, someone has to bat free. I do agree, though, that Shea Hope potentially, I'd like to see him at number five. I don't want to see him at four or three, but I would
I
definitely want.
agree, Roger. If you remember, before the first Test match, I had MLAC in my side for a reason. I
Mm,
don't agree with Shea Hope, your best batsman. I think he's your best batsman in this playing 11. Do you agree with me?
yeah.
Okay, so if Shea Hope's your best batsman, he can't bat at number six. That's for sure. Chase can't be batting ahead of him. On the other side, what I don't want Hope to be tired of keeping. And then that's the reason why he's batting at six. That's why the MLAC in the side where Hope can keep his body fresh. Believe it or not, and I'm a keeper, I've kept for a very long time too. I don't keep recently, but I've kept, right? When you keep, especially in the longer formats, your body has to absorb a lot of work. Keepers are doing a lot of work, compared to, players. I'm not saying that players in the field aren't putting in the work, but keeper is working on every ball. His body is moving on every ball. And I don't think that Shea Hope had that kind of energy when he came into bat, and you saw it in the fourth innings. Even though it was day number three, he'd already kept two innings. And, he looked a little bit tired when he came into bat.
Mhm. All right. Well, let's see what happened. Darren Sammy had a bit more to say, Samir.
Put guys in positions where they probably most comfortable. For in case somebody like Brandon King fails first slip in the white ball format all his life. Roston Chase is probably our backward point in the white game, so he's the closest one to Gully. So maybe switching in positions, but we will continue to practice and see how better we could get.
Hey, listen,
Samir.
this is going to be a tough test for you. Okay, I'm going to tell you this right now. This looks like it's going to be a tough test. The coach is already saying it's going to be a tough test. The question is going to be, how does this pitch look, right? And once again, if the pitch is similar to the pitch from the last test match, I think West Indies is in trouble.
But Samir, Darren Summit just said maybe we should look to put guys in positions where they're most comfortable. For example, Brandon King has fielded at first tip all his life. Chase is probably more comfortable in the gully. So if that's the case, shouldn't he have known this before the game? What is Darren
Absolutely.
Summit saying?
Absolutely. And that's what I'm trying to say to you. Muddled thinking, no strategy, no flexibility. And you're basically telling a team, which is a dominant team. Remember, Australia is a dominant outfit, right? They have Scott Boland, who doesn't even play out of Australia, right? He only plays when Hazelwood's injured, right? So Australia is a dominant squad. You have to disrupt their game plan. If your game plan is going to remain the same, Australia is going to run rough on you all game long.
All right, Steve Smith back for Australia. The Western is expected to field an unchanged 11 Samir. Any predictions? Any final thoughts on this game? Again, fans, go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you have not yet subscribed. Like the video, share with your friends, follow us on socials, all the socials on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter or X. Now, Samir, looking at the game tomorrow, how do you see this panning out? Do you think the Westerners can put up a better performance here
So, so
in
if
match?
West, so if West Indies needs to compete and win, what you're looking for is big scores from some of their top order batsmen. That's what you'll require. You'll require at least a big century from one of the top six, I would say, right? Shea Hope, King, Carty, Campbell, Brathwaite, Chase. One of these guys will have to score a triple digit run here. That's number one, right off the bat. Number two, with Steve Smith back in the side, Australia is a lot more, competitive now on the batting side. They scored some good runs. Remember, you saw Head, Carey, and Webster all score runs in the second innings, right? And in the first innings, Travis Head scored runs too. You are very lucky that Australia didn't have a centurion in that game, right? So Australia is going to be looking to score runs. You'll have to ball extremely well, just like you balled in the first test match. And depending on the wicket, once again, I think the wicket is the key. I haven't looked at it right now, but I haven't seen anything in the reports which is saying that this is going to be a similar wicket to the last test match.
All right, let's see. Fans, rally, get out there, support the West Indies team. Grenada tomorrow should be an exciting one. All right, Samir. Now let's talk India. India versus England. An absolutely exciting test match there going on, Samir, in Edgbaston. England again won the toss and decided that they would insert India. And at the end of day number one, India 310 for 5 with Shubman Gill, Captain Shubman Gill, on 114, his second 100 as test captain in only 2 appearances. Jaiswal, a well-made 87. Jadeja appeared with him at the end on 41. Chris Woakes, the pick up the bowler of Samir with 2 for 59. Your assessment of day number 1, Samir?
Hey, unbelievable. If I told you that India in the first 6 days of this tour would have 6 centuries and they would be behind 1-0, I wouldn't believe that. And that's exactly where we are. England keeps on making the same mistake Australia is. They keep on giving opportunities to India. Their bowling attack looks terrible. Archer was available. They didn't select him. And India's at 310 for 5 again. This looks like a replay of the first test match first day, right? Where India's in complete control. And that's what it looked to me. It was a frustrating day for England. But, it's frustrating because they don't have the bowling. Bashir, once again, doesn't look effective at all. We spoke about this last time in the last test match, even though England was very lucky to win. I thought that, he didn't look great. And then if you look at Woakes, yeah, Woakes had a better start today, but, he's not that threatening. And then Cars and Tongue didn't look great at all either today. So I'm not sure where England is going. I think England is just looking to play the baseball with brains version and say, listen, you're going to score 400, we're going to score 400, you're going to score 350, and we're going to chase 350. That's what the bet is.
I don't necessarily believe India is in full control, Samir. I mean, we saw in the first test, I mean, India were over 400 for, I think, 3 wickets.
Yes.
Bowl out for 471. India has a long tail, right?
Yes.
And Jadeja's already batting. So I don't know. I mean, let's see. It all depends on how the first session goes tomorrow.
But
I think right now it's evenly poised going into day number 2. And we know England has a very strong batting lineup, Samir. So let's see how that goes. But do you agree with Ben Stokes putting India into bat? And also, Samir,
no, I don't.
What do you make of England's decision to not select Jofra Archer?
I disagree with both the decisions. First of all, pre-toss, you have your squad placed, right? You're not playing Archer. You've already seen that you have a toothless attack. Yes, your bowlers took wickets later in the innings. In both the innings, in the first test match, you saw India collapse at the end. I think that's just not the way to approach this game. That's number one. You needed Archer. You needed somebody to come in. I would have taken Archer over Tongue any day of the week. That's number one. I think that would have helped England. I think Cars and Woakes, the pressure would have been off them because, once again, Indian batsmen would be taking chances against Woakes and Cars, especially with Archer in the bowling lineup. Then number two, India didn't select Bumrah for this game. So India said, listen, we're not going to select Bumrah. So India is giving England an opening to go up 2-0 because Bumrah is their most threatening bowler. You saw the other bowlers didn't look that threatening that day. So I think, England's trying their best to give India a game here, to be honest, at this point. But at the same time, it's going to depend on how England bat now. Remember, you don't score 400 every time the other team score 400 either. There's going to be a collapse. England's going to see a collapse one of these days. And when England does, it's going to cost them the game.
The reasoning Samir given for not playing Bumrah is because the belief is that he would be more effective, I guess, in Lords.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But once again, with that said, England should be saying, hey, listen, this is our chance to go up 2-0. And especially winning the toss, there was nothing in the pitch today to suggest that, you should be bowling first, right? There weren't any overcast conditions. I think it was slightly overcast to open, but within 10 minutes it cleared up and it was a sunny day, right? There was no reason for England not to bat today. You could have had Ben Duckett and Crawley, rock right at the open and score a lot of runs today too, just like India did. Remember, India had 310 for 5 of 85 overs. That's a pretty good score here. And remember, in the first test match, Jadeja didn't score any runs in both the innings. He's already at 41. Usually when Jadeja scores runs, India wins.
What do you make of Richard Pant's dismissal?
Hey, listen, that's Richard Pant. That was a good catch, right? That was a a catch. You have to, once again, hey, listen, it's a good catch. Bashir got extremely lucky. Once again, he got a wicket today. He's not an effective spinner. Once again, England's making the same mistakes, right? England's won the test match. I think there should have been at least 2 changes that England should have made. England should have brought in another spinner, in my opinion. Once again, I didn't see anybody that they've selected in the squad that could replace him, but I think they should. And they should have also dropped Tongue for Archer. I think that would have been those 2 things that I would have done. And I think that would have been more effective. Listen, Joe Root bowled 1 over today, but he was forced to bowl because Bashir didn't look good. Stokes was just trying to find a wicket somewhere. And remember, Stokes is bowling again 10, 15 overs a day. I think, once again, Stokes is going to start to run into a lot of trouble too. Stokes is not in that shape and he has not bowled 15, 20 overs a day. He starts bowling 15, 20. England have the potential of losing Stokes too. Remember, he's always injury prone.
Regardless of what you said, Samir, I know you mentioned that yes, the Lord's pitch obviously is going to be more helpful to the seam bowlers and probably more helpful to Bumrah, especially with that large slope. But Ravi Sastry, I mean, said this morning there's a good amount of time, Samir, between the first test match and the second test match, and he's not very happy that Bumrah chose to sit this game out. As you mentioned, Bumrah sitting this game out could easily, obviously, it's going to mean that batting is going to be easier for England, right? And it
Yes.
could easily mean that they have no chance of actually squaring the series.
Hey, listen, absolutely, I agree. But at the same time, look at India right now. Once again, cruising right now. I'm telling you right now, you think they're not cruising. I think they're cruising. If they don't collapse like they collapsed in the first test in both innings, I think India can score 430, 450 again. And I'm telling you
Mm.
right now, it's not going to be easy for England every time to look at the scoreboard of 430, 450 and get up there too. It's just not going to be easy. I think also India, I think made one mistake. I think they didn't play Kuldeep today. I'm not sure why. They chose Sundar, but I really thought that they should have gone with Kuldeep Yadav here. Once again, maybe they're waiting to pair Kuldeep Yadav with Bumrah in at Lords.
I think they're just looking to extend, I guess, their batting, Samir. That's why they played Washington Sundar. And obviously, knowing that the Edgbaston pitch will be a little bit more helpful to spin. As you said, Kuldeep is more of a wicket taking, match winning spinner. Washington Sundar is more of a defensive type,
Yes.
spinner, especially in these
But
conditions. But
But what I'm saying is, once again,
batting,
both teams have made mistakes again, right? Once again,
mm,
I understand why they're taking it easy with Bumrah. You got to understand, Bumrah has had many injury issues, right? So once again, I understand that, listen, Lords is definitely going to be a more conducive environment for him. But being down 2-0 might not be as conducive. So I agree with you there.
what did you make of the move to put Karun Nair at number three?
Excellent move. Excellent move. I think that's a good move. I think he did look good today. 31, free flowing innings of 50 balls. He had 5 boundaries, and he was looking good until he got out there. But here's the problem that England have. England don't have
Wait
any
a minute.
wicket
Who,
takers.
who, was, who batted at number three in the first test match? Who was
Uh,
dropped?
the Sudarshan, Sai
Sudarshan. Yeah,
Sudarshan. He didn't look
yeah.
good at all. He didn't look good at all. So, once again, I think Karan Nair looked good today. But the problem with England is England doesn't have the bowling to get these batsmen out cheaply, right? That's the problem. And you're seeing that right now. So,
Mm.
once again, you get Karan Nair out, you get Gill. You get Gill out, you get Pan. You get Jaiswal out, you get Pan. Once again, this India has such depth in their batting that they keep going. At one point, listen, 211 for 5. If you get Jadeja there, you get Gill there. Once again, you're in the game. But look, they've added almost 99 runs, and they added 99 runs in 24 overs, and it was
Mhm.
easy. It wasn't that difficult. And Gill looks in very, very good form. He had a century in the first game. He has another century right now. And I'm
Yeah,
looking for
certainly.
tomorrow morning him to, open up and try to score a big 150, 180, or even a double century here.
Yeah, certainly looking like a special number four. I mean, since Kohli has gone, I mean,
Hey,
the production
listen.
at
They
number
they,
four
they, they,
has
they
actually gone up.
replaced Rohit Sharma with Jaiswal, who has a century in the first game, 87 in the first innings here. They
Mm.
replaced Kohli with Gill, and this guy is also the captain, and now he has 2 centuries. And guess what? Rishabh Pant obviously got out for 25 today. That was a really good catch by Crawley. But guess what?
Mm.
He had 2 centuries in the first game too. So even though India are down 1-0, I don't think that India believes that they're far behind.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Even though the results might suggest that the series is 1-0 and England might be going up 2-0 if Indian bowling doesn't show up, but they're not that behind, to be honest.
No, no, very. In fact, we could actually say that India should have really done better. They should have not lost that first game, Samir.
Hey, listen.
They
Once again, I think it was the bowling. It was the bowling, right? That's what it is. Once again, the way the pitch improved, and Ben Duckett played a special knock, right? Fourth innings, 150. That's what it
But it's not just
was.
the bowling, Samir. Remember, 430 for free. That was
Yeah.
a huge collapse. They should have gotten at least 550. And
And I
then,
think you see that today. You see
and
that
England,
today.
and those drop catches in England's first innings, they should have gotten nowhere close to that score.
Yes.
So India should have been one up in this series, Samir.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that India doesn't believe that they're behind really. India
Mm.
believes that they're right there with England. Might be up 1-0, but you know what? India's right there. And I think, I think this first test was a lesson for the Indian players. They took it easy in both the innings, right? I think the dressing room relaxed, thinking 430 for three, 300 for three. We're rolling, right? I don't think that today is the case. Today, when they went 211 for five, they didn't collapse. Now they're 310 for five. And, this could easily be 400, 450 tomorrow. And I think 450 is going to be very competitive, especially considering that they might spin later on in the game. And if it starts to spin, to be honest, India has a better advantage, right? They have Jadeja, they have Sundar. Guess what? England only has Bashir.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, if Shubman Gill in particular can get in tomorrow, right now I think it's even at poise. This game could go either way. If England is able to grab early wickets, Samir, they could seize the
Yeah.
advantage. But
Yes, but
they don't
remember,
get
once again,
Gill.
I'm gonna tell you something. Gill is playing catch up. Remember,
Mm,
Gill now has been playing, international cricket for approximately 6 years, 7 years, right? He hasn't played a lot of cricket because remember, Rohit Sharma and Kohli were always available, so he was not the first choice. Now he's captain. Remember, he debuted in ODIs in 2019, and his first test was in 2020. So he's playing catch up. And I'm going to tell you right now, Gill is one player to watch. He averages 37. Watch that average just skyrocket. I'm
yeah,
expecting his average to be 50 very, very soon in Test cricket.
he's also averaging 60 in ODI cricket.
Yes, and that's what I'm saying. So ODIs, he's had a consistent run. In Test cricket, he never got that consistent run, right? Now that
Mm,
he's captain and you see how he's batting in full form. And remember, it's not as if you're batting on Indian pitches. He's batting on English pitches in English conditions, and he's doing very well.
yeah, yeah. All right, let's see what happens tomorrow. One of my favorite player in the world to watch, Samir, Shubman Gill. So
Hey, listen, he's an incredible player.
mhm. Should definitely be exciting. And let's see how tomorrow goes.
Listen,
Any,
tomorrow is going to be a special day. Not only am I going to start the day watching Shubman Gill bat, and I'm looking for a big 100. He's already at 114, but I'm looking for a 160, 170 for him, potentially a 200. But not only that, Steve Smith comes back, and if West Indies is balling on the first day against Steve Smith, that's going to be interesting and exciting at the same time too.
well, I hope the West Indies wins the toss and bats first tomorrow in Grenada.
Let's see.
In those conditions, I don't believe it's going to be a spicy pitch in Grenada at all.
You
So
think it's going to be a high-scoring game?
not necessarily an high scoring game, but I think the pitch is not going to offer a whole lot for the bowlers. Put it that
Hey,
way.
listen, if that's the case, watch out.
I don't
Australia.
think I don't think the West Indies batting lineup, even if it's a flat wicket, is really that capable of scoring big runs. And even the Australian batting lineup against the West Indies bowling, which is a very good attack, I don't believe any of these teams are gonna get a lot of runs.
Hey,
If
listen,
that
I,
makes
I think it depends on Steve Smith. If he's feeling good and he gets a good start, watch out.
All right, cool. All right, folks. Well, there you have it. Full day of cricket tomorrow. England takes on India, second day of that test match, and the West Indies versus Australia in Grenada. As always, we will be back to give our updates, our thoughts, our opinions on the day's play tomorrow. See you then.
Take care, guys.